This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English. Episode number 143, baby. Oh yeah. In today's episode, I speak to Dan the Man about Germany, about the strange things that I saw in Germany because I was there last week and I saw some strange things. So I thought, let's talk about that. You know, you have to go with what you know. That's why you will never hear me do a podcast about science or art because I don't know anything about science or art. But sex, penises, vaginas, poos, strange things about Germany. Oh yes, I know some things about that. So that is the type of rubbish you will listen to on Rock and Roll English, just so we're clear. Anyway, remember all of the rock and roll vocabulary is on the website rockandrollenglish.com, episode number 143. So go there, find it. If you want the quiz, the transcript for the episode and a transcript every day for a podcast every day of the week, what do? rockandrollenglish.com/family, baby. I'm going to stop talking now. Here is the episode. Dan the Man, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Always fantastic, Dan. Always fantastic. Very excited to talk to you.
No, you're not.
I'm not really. No one else was available. I asked Boom Boom, I asked the Hellraiser. They're all busy. So
yeah, they've all got lives.
Exactly, but you haven't. And that's what's great about you, Dan. That's what I really appreciate about you.
Well, you're welcome.
Anyway, Dan, how do we usually start the show?
With a review.
Do you think we have a review?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I actually sent this one to Dan beforehand.
That's not true. That's not true.
Wait till you read it, Dan, okay? You've already embarrassed yourself a few times on this show by saying things like that, okay? Let's not do it again. It's from Bruno Bianchi, and it says, 2 weeks in a row without a review. This is unacceptable for such a great show. By far the most enjoyable way to learn English. Thanks, Martin, for all your hard work. Welcome, Hellraiser. Great first appearance. Welcome back, Dan the Man. All seems good at this point, Dan, doesn't it, for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh God, what's coming?
Takes a little bit of a turn for the worse. So there's some rock and roll vocabulary. A turn for the worst means when you sort of going in a good direction, then you sort of go in not a very good direction, basically. It goes on to say, I have to admit that your first two appearances since your return were boring.
Oh yeah, you did send me this.
There we go. Okay, you've embarrassed yourself already. Never mind. I would say all of the, 100 episodes Dan has been on have all been boring, but he's only mentioning 2, Dan, so that I hope makes you feel good.
Yeah, why were they boring though?
Well, to be fair, he sort of drags me into this a little bit as well. So when you drag someone in, you make them involved. You and Martin sounded like a couple trying to make things up. So I'm kind of involved, but I'm putting the blame firmly on you, Dan, okay?
You would have cut that out if I hadn't asked, wouldn't you? You would have just left the review there.
Some rock and roll grammar there, Dan. What conditional was that?
I can't remember what I said now, to be honest.
Forget conditionals. He can't even remember what he's saying. It was actually the third. But anyway, the review goes on. But I'm glad that you're back on the right foot. Where is Boom Boom Cannon? The World Cup episodes are at the top of my favourite list. Bring him back, Martin. He has been back. This was obviously sent to me before that. A clarification, Charlie gives balance to the show. Birds and Bees episode have some of the most hilarious moments of this podcast channel. Corporal Coma. What can I say except I don't understand a word he says. Just kidding. The history about Martin's childhood brings a family aspect to the show. Thank you all for your amazing work that you display every week and keep on rocking. Wow. Thank you very much for that, Bruno.
Yeah, that was good.
And thank you for calling Dan boring. I appreciate that.
He called us boring.
He called you boring mainly. Anyway, Dan, do you know what we're talking about today?
Have you told me?
This time I actually haven't, okay? So I'll let you off. So remember, when you let someone off, it's when you don't punish them, let's say, for doing something wrong, because Dan obviously just did something very wrong. Well, as you know, Dan, I was in Germany. have difficulty saying that. I don't know why. It's a simple word. Germany recently for the language influencer conference thingy-majiggy. Did you notice there, Dan? I said thingy-majiggy. When we don't know a word, we say things like this, thingy-majiggy. So yeah, I was in Germany and I noticed a very strange thing. I was crossing the road. There were no cars in sight. I couldn't see any cars. The traffic light was red. Fucking no one's crossing the road.
Yeah, that's beautiful order, isn't it?
I was just like, what the fuck are you doing? And then I was thinking, well, I want to go, but I was too scared because I was thinking, well, I don't want them thinking I'm like doing something illegal and something wrong. So we were all just waiting there, no cars, and then the traffic light is green, and then everyone crosses the road, still no cars.
It's somewhat different from Rome, isn't it?
Well, also here in Palermo, it's people just start running in the road. But that's what I like. It's organised chaos, Dan. It's organised chaos. That's the difference.
Is it?
It's organised. Once you know the rules, I call it a jungle, okay? And when you know the rules of the jungle, everything is fine. If you're asking, I'm the king of the jungle, okay? People call me Tarzan here.
Yeah, I love Palermo, but it's a unique place. I once found a skeleton of a cat there.
That's not true.
Yeah, it was. It was when we went to the beach on the bikes, and obviously it was a tough journey back. And I got off the bike, and I saw a skeleton of a cat on the pavement.
Well, you certainly never mentioned that to me. You're lucky you didn't turn into a skeleton as well, because you were sort of dying so much from cycling in the heat.
It wasn't that. I had a cut.
Oh, that was it. He said he cut his leg. He was like, "Oh, Martin, my leg is hurting so much." Started crying. Had to phone his mum to make sure. And she was like, "Come on, Dan, it's okay."
I didn't cry. But the cut is true.
He cried. So, yeah, I thought we could talk about some strange things about Germany, okay? So apparently the government have like this law where they can reject baby names. So when you have a baby, you obviously write down the name on the birth certificate, and then the German government looks at this and then says if the name is acceptable or not, which I find quite strange. You know, it's a free world, Dan. You know, if I want to call my baby Super Mario, that's up to me, isn't it?
Yeah. But then again, do you really want to name your baby Super Mario or Superman, Spider-Man?
Well, it's a free word, Dan, but...
This is like an idiot law, and I think I kind of respect it.
A law for the idiots. Now I think about it, I do actually quite like it. But I did a bit of research about some other names that have been banned, because it's happened in a few different countries. One name that was banned was anal. I can't remember the country, so anal, basically that's like sex from behind, let's say, which... Why would you want to call your child that? It's a strange one.
I think that is a name in different cultures. So.
Oh, right. Doesn't sound very good in English.
No.
Another one was RoboCop.
Yeah, but that's what the law's for.
Exactly. One was Linda in another country. I thought, what's wrong with Linda? It's a good name.
Is Martin on any list?
No. Although Martin is a shit name, I must admit. Dan, though, as I've said before, is too commercial. We've already got 2 Dans on RnR English. Bloody hell. And there's only like 5 people on here.
Just for the record, I am the original Dan, okay? The other Dan had to change his name.
The other Dan knows the name is so shit and he didn't want the name. That's the difference. The Hellraiser is much cooler than Dan.
Yeah, it is cool.
And one that I really enjoyed was in Italy. Someone apparently tried to call their child Venerdì, which is Friday. And then the judge said, no, that's not allowed. But then they changed it to Mercoledì, which is Wednesday. And that was okay.
Hang on. So this law's in Italy as well?
Well, apparently, I don't know if it's an actual law or something, just someone intervened. So when you intervene, it's when you see something that's going wrong and then you come in and sort of say, no, this isn't all right.
So why was Wednesday allowed?
Well, exactly. Obviously, the judge or whoever preferred Wednesdays. Speaking of days of the week, though, Dan, I thought following on from last week's show, we could do a quick summary of days of the week. Again, I've got a list from BuzzFeed, and starting at the worst.
Is this following on from your reviews of the months?
Well, if you were listening to me, Dan, you would have noticed that I actually just said following on from last week's episode. So
I thought you said following on from our last week's episode.
no, Dan, you must listen, okay?
Yeah.
You don't listen to what you say, and you don't listen to what I say.
I
okay?
definitely don't listen to what you say.
Well, listen to one of the two of us, and then you'll be able to follow the conversation. Okay, that will help a lot.
Okay.
One other thing I want to mention about days of the week before we get onto the list is I think last week I spoke to Dan and we said, recording, when are you able to record? And I said, what about tomorrow? And Dan said, no, I'm busy on Saturday. And I said, Dan, tomorrow is Wednesday. That's the life of a freelance human being.
Did I? I can't even remember that. My life is out of control.
Jesus Christ, Dan, you need to sort yourself out. So sort yourself out, like organise yourself. Things, as you said, are getting out of control. That's the type of thing that can happen if you're on holiday for like 2 weeks and you don't know what day of the week it is. This is just your normal life, Dan, and you don't know what day of the week it is.
Yeah, I've been on holiday for 2 years.
Exactly. So let's get back to our list. So apparently in last place is Tuesday. What do you think of that, Dan?
Yeah, that is the worst day of the week.
I agree with you. It is shit because, Monday you can kind of accept is shit. And, if you're having a difficult Monday, you think, I deserve this because I got too drunk over the weekend. I deserve this. Tuesday is just a kick in the teeth, isn't it? It's like a kick in the teeth when you're already like in pain and then you get kicked in the teeth.
Yeah, but I quite like Mondays.
Well, that's 6th on the list. I thought it was never going to be high. Well, every day of the week is the same for you, though, Dan, now, isn't it? So it makes no difference.
Unless it's Tuesday or Sunday. I don't like those.
Monday, though, the saving grace about Monday, so we had that last week, the sort of one good point is that in England, anyway, there are bank holiday Mondays, which are like a holiday for all of the country, which are fucking great.
Are they? I find them quite annoying.
Oh, God. Just can't make you happy, can we, Dan? You don't like working. Even when you're free and you're not working, you're still not happy.
I like shops to be open for as long as possible, just in case I want to go to the shop at 7 o'clock at night. Okay,
well, let's just keep all the shops open in all of the world, just in case Dan the man wants something. How about that?
Great, let's do it.
So Wednesday is 5th. Again, bit of a shit. It's halfway. What does it belong to the beginning of the week, the end of the week? It's just can't make its mind up. That's the problem with Wednesday.
Yeah, I think, the podcast has been going for 2 years now, isn't it? I think you're starting to run out of material because, we're reviewing the months and now the weeks. What's it going to be next week?
These are the important things people talk about in day-to-day life, Dan. You don't know because you don't go out of the house.
Yeah, I don't talk to anyone, yeah.
This is what normal people talk about. 4th place is Sunday, which you've already mentioned it, Dan, is a bit of a shit day. It's okay for me until the afternoon, and then you're thinking, oh, fuck, the week is starting.
Yeah, I do remember when I was at school and just having this knot in my stomach on Sunday night because I obviously haven't done any homework. And there's this unbearable internal pain. It felt like I was bleeding inside because I didn't want to go to school.
I mean, that seems a bit extreme, but I certainly can understand you to some extent. Notice Dan said there he had a knot in his stomach. That's a lovely piece of rock and roll vocabulary, just to say basically a pain in your stomach.
Yeah, a knot is what you do with ropes, isn't it?
Yes, Dan, yes. Thanks for the explanation. Dictionary Dan. Friday is 3rd. Bit overrated, in my opinion. Too commercial.
You keep saying too commercial as if you're some sort of rebel or some sort of hipster.
I am a hipster, Dan. I'm too cool for school, as they say. That's an expression I think I heard in a film once. I was so cool that they said, you can't come to school today. You have to go to the school with the cool kids.
Oh, yeah? And you never went?
Never went, no. Okay, let's quickly run through these then. So Thursday is number 2 and number 1 is Saturday.
Wow.
Thoughts?
Okay. Wow, fantastic. I'm glad we've established that.
Me too. Okay, so let's get back to Germany. Apparently prostitution is considered a real job. In fact, it's considered the oldest profession in Germany. I didn't know you could class being a prostitute as a profession.
It's considered the oldest profession in the world.
Really? Can we call it a profession? Is selling drugs a profession?
Well, it's not a legal profession, but
Apparently in Germany they have like these sex drive-throughs. So the only drive-throughs I know are at McDonald's, the way you can go through and just the first one you say what you want. And then I don't know how the sex one works.
Yeah, I'll have a double Big Mac, please.
Exactly.
It's code.
Another strange thing about Germany is the Chancellor. I've forgotten her name now. And what's her name? Merkel. Apparently there is a Barbie doll of Merkel, like the Prime Minister. So you just to clarify this, a Barbie doll for children to play with of the Prime Minister, Merkel.
Does it sell?
I don't know, but who the fuck would buy that? Could you imagine if there was a Theresa May one?
I'd buy you that if there was.
Remember, people that don't know, Theresa May is the current Prime Minister of Britain. Whether she
for today,
yeah. But yeah, that is absolutely mental. Everything is closed on Sundays, apparently in Germany. It says everything except churches, which I can tell you is definitely not true because I was in Germany on Sunday. We went out after the conference on Saturday night. I got very drunk. That's generally what people do at these things. On the Sunday, it was the lunch break. Everyone said, let's go and get something to eat. And they wanted to go for something healthy. And I was like, look, I got drunk last night. I fucking want burger and chips.
Did you go on your own?
I went on my own, yeah. Just moved away from the crowd. I'm not a sheep, Dan. I don't follow the crowd. Okay,
Did you really?
I go in my own direction. Yeah, I didn't want to have like a fucking salad. I was hungover as fuck. So when you're hungover as fuck, it means you're hungover a lot. So I was looking around for a burger. Everything was shut. Couldn't find anything. And then I looked up and I just saw a place called Burger Home. And I thought, that's where I want to be. The home of burgers.
Was it good?
It actually wasn't. To be called Burger Home, it really wasn't very good. I was disappointed. I expected much more from the home of burgers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently in Germany, it's bad luck to wish someone happy birthday before their birthday. That's the same here in Italy. I thought, is it the same in France, Dan?
Don't know. Not many people wish me happy birthday here, so it's difficult to know.
You know what? I put that question in on purpose. So not by accident, because I knew you wouldn't know the answer. Have you ever even spoken to a French person, Dan?
Yeah, in English.
Really sort of discovering all the different things about French culture.
It's just too awkward. I mean, I can speak a little bit of French, but it's just everyone's English is better than my French, so it's just too painful.
I can imagine you just talking to French people, banging on about Brexit. So banging on about something, constantly talking about it.
Yeah, not really. No, I mean, I do get asked a lot about it, though. Like, what's going on?
Get some inside knowledge, expert knowledge from Dan the Man. But remember, it's not happening. Dan the Man said it's not happening. Yeah. Don't worry, everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
In Germany as well, apparently there are fake bus stops. So they are made to look like a bus stop, but they're actually not. Which sounds a bit... Well, good question, Dan. It sounds a bit strange, but there is actually a good kind of reason. Apparently they have them near places where people have Alzheimer's, like the disease, and people get lost, and then they think, okay, I'm going to take the bus. So they have these fake bus stops so that they go there and they just wait there and they don't actually take the bus, which, is very nice and everything like that. Sounds like a good idea. My only question is, what if someone doesn't know it's fake and is actually trying to take the bus there?
Yeah. And also, how does that help someone with Alzheimer's if they're waiting by a bus stop that no bus is going to come?
Well, I think it's to stop them going away and taking a bus and not knowing where they're going kind of thing.
Yeah, but how long do they have to wait before they realise no bus is coming?
Well, I think then someone goes and finds them. If they realise they're missing, they say, where's Dave? He must be at the bus stop.
It seems like a slightly flawed system, but okay. Yeah. It's nice.
Rock and roll vocabulary there. If a system is flawed, it has some problems. It's not been thought out very well. Apparently as well, Germans like their privacy. Okay, and especially with greeting people. So when you greet someone, it's when you say hello. You're not supposed to hug anyone or kiss anyone unless you're very good friends with them. As you know, I always struggle with this. I had this again at the conference that I was at. I spent, 2 solid days with everyone, a lot of time, and then you've got that goodbye part, and you just think, what do I do? Do I go for a kiss? a handshake's too formal, a hug, 2 kisses. Oh, it was a disaster. I just tried to slip away without anyone notice.
And they probably didn't notice either. So
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I can't even imagine anyone saying, "Where's that idiot gone?" It was just like, okay. Probably the night got better when I left, actually.
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Anyway, I'll be telling you many more embarrassing stories about the conference in the family episodes, Dan the Man.
Oh, I can't wait. I'll be waiting with bated breath.
What was that? Waiting with bated breath? I honestly have never heard that, Dan.
Do you know what? I'm starting to doubt whether it's actually a term myself now.
Well, it's funny you say that because last week, Dan, you said, if I tell you off my own back, or 2 weeks ago, and then someone sent me a message and said, the term isn't off my own back, it's off my own bat.
Is it really?
It is. I did some research into it. So please, think about what you say, Dan. I know you don't listen to what you say, but try and think before. Think before speaking. General kind of rule of mine, okay?
Does this mean I can finally lose the nickname Dictionary, Dan?
I don't know about that, okay?
Of course not.
I'll have to think about that. Anyway, thanks a lot for your time, Dan the Man.
Yep, all right. Speak to you later.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, so that was Dan the Man and me speaking about the strange things in Germany. So let's have a look at some of that rock and roll vocabulary. At the beginning, when I was reading the review, there was a good bit about Dan, and then I said it takes a bit of a turn for the worse. So when something takes a turn for the worst, it moves in a bad direction, let's say. And then I said that I get dragged into it. So if someone drags you into something, they pull you into the situation. Then we had the biggest piece of rock and roll vocabulary, in my opinion. I said I was in Germany for the language influencer thingy-majiggy. This is actually a very common thing that native speakers say. When we don't know a word, we say, what's that thing, that thingy-majiggy? The thing that you use to dry your hair, what's it called? That drying thingy-majiggy. Hairdryer, yes. This can be very useful when you don't know a word, especially for a concrete noun. Thingy-majiggy. Obviously not very formal, but very common. We also had the word intervene when we were talking about the names and they check if the names are all right. I said someone intervenes. Someone comes in and says, look, okay, you can't call your kid Friday. I then told Dan that he needs to sort himself out. So when you need to sort yourself out, you need to organise yourself, organise your life. Then we were talking about the days of the week and I said Tuesday is just a kick in the teeth. So a kick in the teeth is obviously not a good thing. I don't know anyone that enjoys getting kicked in the teeth. It's generally when you're down on the floor, so you're already in a bad situation, and then someone comes and kicks you in the teeth. Not what you need when you're on the floor, is it? And then we had the saving grace about Mondays, and we had that last week because we had a similar conversation last week with Boom Boom, didn't we? If you're wondering, why did Martin start talking about almost the same thing that he did last week? It's because of the thing I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. I don't know many things. I don't know about science or art, so I have to say the same things over and over again. Dan the Man said that on Sundays he had a knot in his stomach. So if you have a knot in your stomach, it's a pain in your stomach, let's say. Then I told Dan that I was too cool for school. I stole that from a film. That's not the type of thing I can invent on my own, but it's a cool little phrase. I like it. It's colourful. Doesn't really mean very much, I must admit, but it's colourful. I also said that I was hungover as fuck. I actually quite like that term, to say something as fuck, to really sort of emphasise it. You could even say I'm tired as fuck. Really tired, really emphasise it. As you've probably imagined, it's not the most formal thing to say, but it's colourful, baby. I then mentioned the question that I put in on purpose about whether it was bad luck in France to wish someone happy birthday before their birthday. I did that on purpose. It wasn't an accident. Then I said that I can imagine Dan banging on about Brexit. When you bang on about something, it's when you're constantly talking about it. We also had the term flawed system. If a system is flawed, there are some holes in it. It doesn't quite work very well. Then Dan the man, right at the end, said, I'll be waiting with bated breath, which is actually a phrase. He actually got it right this time. Apologies for last time where he got the phrase wrong, but I've Googled this before I actually spoke about this, and it is correct. I've never heard it though, so that probably tells you how common it is. But it basically means waiting anxiously. And speaking of waiting anxiously, if you are one of the people that are anxiously waiting for the new episode of RnR English, it will be here next Monday. And if you're so anxious, you can also listen to it tomorrow and every day of the week with rocknrollenglish.com/family. But if you think, you know what, I don't really want to pay, that's fine, because all of the RnR English from this episode is on the website, rocknrollenglish.com, episode number 143. Go there and just enjoy all the free stuff. I do that a lot, so I don't judge you. Everyone loves a freebie, don't they? Anyway, I will see you all again next week, people. Have a great week, but in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to RnR English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rocknrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rocknrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.